You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology for grounding that ass from all the New Age sass. I am your host, Jeff Henshaw. Cosmic Cousins is a weekly astrology podcast. Bi-weekly, really. It's released every new and full moon, and it is here to honor the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Hello, Cosmic Cousins. Welcome to another week of the show. I don't know what happened in the intro there. Maybe it is the Gemini energy. I release a podcast episode every week, but always on the new and full moon. Sometimes I will miss a week depending on what's going on, but either way, I am here for you every new and full moon. And so happy Gemini season. The season of lyricism is upon us. This is what I think of with Gemini is the great writer. So, quote the young scholars, meet the genius next door, call your long-lost cousins once removed, embody your wisest other self, the one that you've kept hidden, tucked away out of fear. Once the lights turn off, is it safe to go out and play? Happy Gemini New Moon to you all. I ponder, I process, I write. I ponder, I process, I write. So this Gemini New Moon, it's upon us here. I'm recording this on Friday, May 22nd. And already, just by connecting to that number 22, it helps us feel into the energy of Gemini. We can feel Gemini with repeating numbers. Whatever it is that communicates to you through the spirit realm in your immediate surroundings, this is Gemini. So be curiously open to a synchronistic flow. Mutable air, right? Mutable is changeable, adaptable, so we're flowing. And then the air is information. And I always think of Gemini season and really just Gemini and energy in general. If you have it in your chart, we all have it somewhere. Gemini energy is like a cosmic cookie crumb trail that leads us on this path of greater alignment and evolution. So repeating numbers is one way that can happen. And I think it's cool that today is the 22nd. If you're listening to this live, what repeating numbers do you have? What do they communicate to you? Some people call them angel numbers, right? So when we look at the soul growth card for Gemini, it is the Lovers, which shows two people in the nude looking across from each other traditionally. And then above them, there is often an angel that is blessing it. So it is this very spiritual energy with Gemini when we're tuning into it from a soul-centered perspective. It's receiving messages from beyond. Gemini receives them, and then Gemini delivers them. So as we're here under this Gemini full moon, you can just be open to these sort of synchronicities and all of Gemini season, really. So it's like the lost and found trinkets. So it's like the book that you hear mentioned 3 times in a row, and you're like, I'm supposed to read that book. Or it could even be, I consider Gemini to be the curbside prophet. The curbside prophet. So this is like a stranger that you don't know, but they offer some sort of advice or some sort of words that sort of change the trajectory of your life. And so we're all feeling into this energy this time of year. We can feel it like if you're shuffling your tarot cards and a card just jumps out at you. This is mutable air. This is the energy of Gemini. It's a message that wants to come through. And so be very mindful of your words at this time. You really harness the ability to shift and change and adapt your life and also other people's lives around you. So it's important for us at this time to be really aligned with truth. We're talking the air element. We're talking the suit of swords. So I've got the Queen of Swords out here on my altar. And I also have the Page of Swords. So for me in my own practice when working with mutable energies, I give them both the Queen and the Page. There's 16 court cards in the tarot, only 12 astrological signs. So the mutable signs with their changeable adaptability get to have 2 cards. So we've got the Lovers out, Page of Swords, Queen of Swords. And then the ruling planet for Gemini is Mercury. So we've got the Magician out here too. So if you tune into these episodes when they're the new and the full moon, I build an altar, and I encourage you to do the same thing. By building an altar, this gives us a way to ground our astrological practice. It also allows us to become really intimate with the archetype and the energy, and it makes us more mindful of our space and our energy. And if you're going to build an altar, you're likely going to sit down in front of it and take a moment to either reflect or pray or write. And so in the case of Gemini, I ponder, I process, I write. Some other things I have on my Gemini altar here, I have masks, right? So many of us have been wearing masks when we go out in the world. And I just think about my friends who made these masks for me. With their hands. Gemini rules over the hands. And they mailed it to me. Gemini rules over the mail. Writing letters to your friends, writing postcards, but also sending masks. But I also just think it's interesting that it covers the mouth. Because when I think about Gemini, I do think about this energy of, it's like the 3 monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Covering the mouth. So actually, in this very playful way, putting on the mask, it makes us more mindful, perhaps, of our communication and our interaction with people in our immediate surroundings. This has been a theme for many of us. I also have some board game pieces here, too. I'll talk about those in a moment. And I rolled 2 pair of dice, and I kid you not. You want to guess what numbers came up? 2 and 2, repeating number 2. So maybe I'll start there. I'll share with you a little Gemini synchronicity story that I had in my life involving the number 22. Here we are, May 22nd. The twins, right? So for me, the number 22 has followed me throughout my lifetime. Originally, I was not necessarily aware of repeating numbers, but it was the first full moon ceremony I ever went to back when I was living in Brooklyn. This was like in 2011, so almost 10 years ago. And after the moon circle, someone came up to me and they said, I think your angels are trying to communicate to you. They're trying to communicate to you with repeating numbers. And so at the time, and usually I'm pretty skeptical always of messages that I receive, but I was open to it as well. And so I went home, I journaled about it, and I wrote, I'm open to receiving messages around the number, any repeating number. But it needs to be tangible. It needs to be physical. I want it to be something that I can pick up. I don't want it to just be like on the clock, right? So anyway, at that time, the company I was working for, it was a cafe in the East Village, and it was closing down. And I didn't know what I was going to do for money. I thought I might have to move back home, but I really wanted to stay in New York City. And I had this dream of becoming a dog walker and starting a dog walking company. So that's what I wrote out. I wrote the intention. I said, I would really like to walk dogs for a living. Could you show me some repeating numbers if this is in alignment? And I want it to be something I can pick up. So that's the agreement I made. I didn't think about it. A few days went by, and I'm helping my friend move from one apartment to another apartment. And as we are on the corner with all of her luggage, it was only a few blocks away, so we were carrying all the luggage and stuff just a few blocks away to our new place, which also feels very Gemini. Gemini rules over the neighborhood, right? It rules over your friends, like the connections that you have with people. Moving, mutable, right? So that's when she realized that she left her wallet at her other place, or it was the keys. She left her keys to the new apartment at her old apartment. So she wanted me to stay on the corner with all of this luggage and guard it while she went to go get the keys. So anyway, I'm sitting here I think I call a friend on the phone, I'm guarding the luggage, whatever. And also, this whole story, I'm realizing how Gemini it is, because like the leaving the keys somewhere and then having to go and get it and having the friend that's helping you guard your stuff, like all of this feels very Gemini. And so as I'm on the phone with my friend, I look down at my feet and I notice that there's a domino, like from a game. And board games are very Gemini to me. So this little domino piece had the repeating number 2, 2, 2 dots, 2 dots. And I knew it wasn't my friend's because we just had luggage. We didn't have any little pieces, but maybe it dropped out of her stuff. I didn't know. But either way, I just picked it up and I put it in my pocket. It turned out that it was not her domino piece. So this was my first message with the repeating number 22. And so I put it in my pocket. I didn't think much of it because I was helping my friend move. But hours later, I was in Manhattan and I was walking to the restaurant that I was working at, and it was closing. And so, as you're walking to a restaurant that is going out of business to get your belongings from there because they're about to shut their doors, it brings up a lot of emotions. And so I remember I was feeling uncertain about the future. And then that's when I remembered I found the domino with the repeating number 2. And so I took it out of my pocket. And I remember I saw the moon was out. I want to say it was a full moon. And I just had this moment. I put the domino up against my heart, closed my eyes. And then right as I did that, this rush of wind went by me, like, whoo, which I also think of wind with Gemini. It's like when you open up the door or the window and a fresh breeze comes through. This is mutable air, right? So I opened my eyes and I was like, was that an angel? Was that wind? What just happened? And it was actually this person had just like run by me and they almost like ran into me. And as I'm seeing them run off, this person had a jersey on. And on the back of their jersey was the number 22. And I was like, oh my gosh, out of all of the moments I could have put the domino up against my heart, it had to have been that moment right then. And so I'm seeing this number 22 again. I feel overwhelmed by it. I want to receive whatever message is coming through. Am I going to start a dog walking company? Am I going to take a leap into the unknown? And so I sit down on the curbside prophet, right? And I just take a moment to kind of just like take it in. I think I might have like a tear come up or something, And then that's when, after some moments of pondering, right? Gemini, I think, I ponder, I process, I write. I look across the street and I see that the address is 223. And I was like, if that's 223, what am I sitting at? And I turn around and I'm sitting at the address 222. And that's when I had all the confirmation I needed. And so I started walking dogs not too long after. I would walk around the West Village and I'd put little business cards up against everyone's mailbox until I started getting clients. It took some time, but I did it, and I walked dogs for about 4 years in New York. But even then, the repeating number 22 continues to follow me. It makes me think of the number of cards in the major arcana and the tarot, and it has continued to guide me. So, what kind of stories of synchronicity do you have? And reconnecting with them at this time could be really good under the light of the Gemini New Moon, or under the darkness of the Gemini New Moon, we should say. Can you cradle darkness with light? This is a question to be pondering. I mean, Gemini wants us to ask questions and seek answers, but maybe not so. Seek the contradiction within the answers. Can you cradle darkness within light? So the Gemini New Moon, it's upon us. And so today, this weekend, and really all Gemini season offers us this time, but particularly during the new moon, and especially a new moon at the early degrees, it's at the 2nd degree of Gemini, right here at the beginning of Gemini season. And so this weekend, it does offer us a time to recover and restore. When we're talking about new moons, it's an internal energy. Gemini isn't necessarily internal, but it can be, and it wants to be here on the new moon. So we're invited inward into this place of adaptability. And so as the world around us continues to take new shape, there's lots of changes happening in the world. This is a time for us to just simply notice what emotions this has brought up for us, right? The moon. What emotions are arising because of the changes that are happening in the world? And so Gemini energy, it may want us socially reaching out to people, which is fine. But no, Gemini energy can also scatter our energy. So the new moon is really beckoning us to use this time to ponder. So here's some questions for us to ponder. What movement and changes have happened in your life? What movement and changes have been brought into your life? What synchronicities and chance happenings have you encountered? Do you feel a certain charge of alignment with the individuals who have come into your life, particularly since this pandemic has happened? I know for me in my own life, the people that I've met, particularly the ones I met just like a few weeks before everything was brought into our conscious awareness, it just feels supercharged. And so this is a time for us to just process and reflect on all the new people in our life, or all of the people that we are reconnecting with, right? Venus is in Gemini retrograde, so we are going back and meeting people from our past. And so not only is it people in our life, it's also within ourselves. So have you met your other self? What new you is emerging at this time? The esoteric phrase for Gemini is, I see my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. So what new you is emerging at this time? Give yourself some space to process the new you, the old you, the coming together of yous. So gifting yourself this time to process is going to help you understand this ever-changing reality that we live in. And so we do this under the energy of Gemini through writing, journaling, spoken word, lyricism. Gemini is connecting us to polarities. So the contradictions in the world are illuminated for us over this 30-day period. And so this new moon is the time to get really clear on your own truth within duality. If I were to add another card here on the altar from the tarot, it'd probably be the Two of Swords, which shows a woman blindfolded, peacefully sitting in front of a calm body of water, and it's nighttime and the moon's out. That definitely gives us some Gemini new moon vibes. So connect with the Two of Swords too. So again, the contradictions in the world are illuminated, and this is a time for us to get really clear on our own truth within that duality. And so there's a lot of buzzing information in the world, and also a lot of buzzing misinformation. It makes me think the President of the United States is a Gemini, and there's just so much like contradiction that happens even just when this person's communicating. And so this is a time for us to let all of that buzzing information go. This is the new moon. So be really mindful of the podcast, the media, the news sources you're engaging with. Be curiously discerning with who you interact with socially and intellectually. Because what starts out as an innocent conversation can spin around into a space of confusion. Because right now, in the sky, we have Mercury in Gemini, Venus retrograde in Gemini, and it's making a square to Neptune in Pisces. Neptune, confusion and fogginess. Pisces, deeply emotional. So it could be a time where a lot of us are feeling really sad. We could be more susceptible to delusion and confusion, drugs and alcohol, and particularly by people who come into our life that might offer us words to confuse us or entice us with an invitation to go down a different route. Gemini is all about, which direction am I going to go? So Gemini can be a trickster energy. Gemini asks, should we go this way or that way? But then Gemini responds to its own questions, and it's like, I think we should go both ways. So in a lower form, we might find ourselves becoming split. This is traveling in entirely two different directions. We might say something that's untruthful, to subconsciously create division of the heart. And I feel like I know this placement pretty well because in my own chart, I have Chiron in Gemini. So look to your chart to see what planets you have in Gemini and how they're being awakened this Gemini season. You can also look to see what planets you have in Sagittarius too, the polar sign, because they're also getting awakened, and we're going to have a partial eclipse, Sagittarius full moon in 2 weeks. So we're dancing with these two very mutable energies here. And so if you do say something that's not entirely true, is it because of creating division? Gemini can separate things in a lower form. So another way this could manifest, we could also agree to something out of alignment with our higher self. Gemini is sometimes wanting to switch it up, so you might do something or say something that allows you to explore a different part of yourself. And so the thing is if we're agreeing to things that are out of alignment with ourselves, the universe will make itself known. Or we may even find ourselves as soon as the coast is clear that we kind of like jet, right? This can sometimes be Gemini energy. It's like, now you see me, now you don't. And so it's like the person that you become friends with, and then all of a sudden they're not there, or the person you're engaging with. So the trickster energy could be really alive right now. So just be mindful of that. Gemini the Twins, this is the divine messengers. And so often during Gemini time, Gemini season, we'll receive some sort of message or new information. And particularly on the new moon, the sun and the moon line up. So sun, we shine a conscious light to our subconscious realms. So deeper hidden messages can come up right now. And as a mutable air sign, the messages can often be unexpected or surprising. They can be contradicting, or they can even be life-changing. In my own life this week, I have received some really disheartening news. And there's nothing I can do with this information but simply be. So I received news that my parents got in a bad car accident. Someone ran a red light and hit them. And so they're both going to be fine, but they both definitely have injuries and their car was totaled. So I'm on the other side of the country and I received this news. Gemini can bring like changing news. And so when we think about on an energetic level, it's like a lot. This was the first day of Gemini season 2, which was really interesting. So this is just, I guess, like 2 days ago. And so people in the world around us are all feeling Gemini. So the person that ran the red light, were they thinking about something else? We found out that there was someone else in the car with them. Were they having a conversation? And we're also having this energy square Neptune and Pisces, which is feeling like you're in a fantasy world or in a dream or in a fog. We're all kind of moving through this fogginess right now. And Gemini is interested in exploring and going out into the world. And so if you are going on short-term travel, Gemini, going on, little bike rides, wear a helmet. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt, whatever it is. Just know that the energy is a little buzzing right now with excitement, while also squaring this energy of deep confusion and spirituality of Neptune and Pisces. So just be careful out there, especially with 4 planets just stationing retrograde. So Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus have all stationed last week retrograde. So it is a time of review. So this new moon is a great time for us, again, to go within. And so what's interesting is if this had happened and this accident with my parents had happened and we weren't experiencing this global pandemic, I might get on a plane and go back and visit them and be there with them. But right now, it doesn't even feel safe to get on a plane necessarily. So this is offering us a window into understanding the invitation of the next year and a half of the Gemini North Node and the Sagittarius South Node. So Sagittarius South Node, we're releasing world travel. We're not getting on planes right now. We're releasing our long-term vision. And we're releasing the need to have some sort of uniting truth is Sagittarius. We're being invited to go towards Gemini with a Gemini North Node. So this is more about short-term travel. This is more about quick information that we can receive. So Sagittarius is the great epic journey. So normally I offer the Brooklyn Fool's Tarot Journey, which is a 6-month tarot journey. I'm not offering that this year. Sagittarius South Node, we're not going on epic journeys, but I am offering for the first time workshop downloads, which is very Gemini. It's here, purchase this 5-hour workshop download, and here's a 95-page PDF that goes along with it, and hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you at the next one. That sort of thing. So it's much more quick information. So in your own life, we're releasing the epic long-term, long-travel philosophy and religion of Sagittarius. We're going more towards the logical energy of Gemini, the quick information bits. Also, we're going towards our neighbors. We're releasing our connection to people in other parts of the world. Sagittarius South Node, right? And so we're going to feel into these themes a bit more. I'll talk about this nodal axis more when we have the Sagittarius full moon, which will be in 2 weeks. So messages can come to us at this time. They can be surprising, they can be life-changing, and really this Gemini New Moon is asking us, what information have you received and how can you just be alone New Moon with it? So on the other side of that though, along with this, for me, this disheartening news that I received, there's duality. So some of you could be receiving really exciting news. Really cool opportunities and information could arise. There's duality in the world around us. And even in my own life, I have duality. So I'm staying at this Airbnb that I've been renting up in Mount Shasta, California. And there is an Airbnb that's on the same property that's a smaller little cabin in the back. And this week, right at the beginning of Gemini season, people booked the Airbnb and moved in. And guess what? It's 2 individuals. They're younger than me. They're lovers, but they're not lovers, if you know what I mean. So the lovers is the soul growth card. So they were 25 and 26, and they came up here from LA, and they're really playful, and they're kind of have this like trickster energy about them. And so it's been interesting because these are the first people that I have hung out with since February, since everything started happening with COVID-19. So I have these 2 new neighbors. Gemini rules over the neighborhood. And they are inviting me into this place of innocent presence. They're inviting me into a place of play. And so what's interesting is they only booked this Airbnb for a few days and they want to stay longer, but someone else booked the Airbnb for this weekend. And so they're crashing with me this weekend at my place. I've agreed to let them stay here. And so it's just really interesting. So right before I sat down to record this, they moved in some of their stuff. They moved in they have a PlayStation and a TV and speakers. And so in my space, it's not even my stuff. Stuff has been moved in here. It's really interesting. And again, this is the first social interaction I've had in 3 months. So it's a little it's in some ways it's spinning me out in the best of ways, but I'm also whoa, what is this social interaction thing? And so tonight we're playing a board game. So I am definitely feeling into the Gemini board game play feels, and also just this ability to adapt, because I have this, heavy news that I've received. I feel heavy, but I also feel light. Gemini is duality. So how can we hold them both? How can you hold your heaviness with lightness? How can you hold the darkness with lightness? Or how can you hold the light with dark? This is all for us to consider right now. And so it makes me think of Jewel, who is my favorite singer when I was a kid. Is the first album I ever bought was Pieces of Me, was it Pieces of Me or Pieces of You? Gemini says it doesn't matter, it's both. But anyway, Jewel is a Gemini Sun, Gemini Moon. I looked at Jewel's birth chart and honored her life last Gemini season, so if you are a Jewel fan, you can go back in the archives and find that episode. But I wanted to share this lyric, right? Gemini's lyricism, this lyric with you from Jewel that kind of embodies this duality. So Jewel writes, Poverty stole your golden shoes. Poverty stole your golden shoes, but it didn't steal your laughter. And heartache came to visit me, but I knew it wasn't ever after.
Poverty stole your golden shoes. It didn't steal your laughter. And heartache came to visit me, but I knew it wasn't ever after.
And then she goes on to sing about her hands. My hands are small, I know, but they're not yours, they are my own. Gemini is the hands, right? So all of this shape-shifting of reality is about bringing us a better and deeper understanding of duality. So the Gemini New Moon, this is a time to go on a walk with your contradictions, to play patty cake with your truth, to dance with all of the information and messaging that you are receiving both from within and without, and then to bring it into harmony. So we can do that with our hands. And so bring awareness to your hands. Take a deep breath into them. Honor these parts of your body. What do the hands mean to you? They're an extension of the heart, and so bring both sides of yourself together. One way you can do that is by practicing mudras, and so the easiest one is just to bring the hands together in a prayer position. And so what we're doing is proposing a marriage between yin and yang energy, between active and passive, the masculine and feminine. And really in Gemini energy, we can think of the energy of masculine and feminine as this father sky, the information, and then bringing it down into the body here in earth. And where is that meeting point between earth and sky is right in the center, at the heart center. And so Gemini, it is ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication and intellectualization on a traditional level, but on an esoteric level, Gemini is ruled by Venus. The esoteric ruling planet for Gemini is Venus. We can feel that in the Lover's card. We can feel that in the meeting place of duality. And so it is about bringing the awareness of duality into the heart. And so when you bring together the contradiction of self, then this very loving presence emerges. And it's this ability to communicate about truth in a way that is building bridges between duality. And so we can feel that with our Queen of Gemini. So if you're new to the show, welcome. We worked on a project 2018-2019 called Zodiac Queens, and we chose one woman for each astrological sign that most embodied her astrological sun sign. And so our Queen of Gemini is Stevie Nicks. So we have Sun and Stevie Nicks.
Oh, mirror in the sky, what is love? Can the child within my heart rise above?
And New Moon and Stevie Nicks.
Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life?
Communicating about darkness in a light and ethereal way. This is Stevie Nicks, and we can even hear just in the lyrics of that song, "Oh, mirror in the sky." Gemini is about the mirror and really looking to spirit. Mirror in the sky, what is love? And that pondering question. Can the child within my heart rise above? Gemini is connecting us to this playful, inner-like child quality that is coming together with the seriousness of life. So we're feeling into all of that on this Gemini New Moon and throughout Gemini's season. So it's interesting. I pulled a card from the board game that I have is called Cosmic Karma. And this game, it's funny because on the cover, it really struck me as Gemini because it's two cartoon characters. They look like little Buddhist monks, but they're kind of like playful with each other. They look like twins. And that's because this game is all about choices. It's cosmic karma, so it's a cool game because it's teaching you that your choices you make do have some sort of, you have a karmic bank essentially. And so as I was setting up my altar for the Gemini New Moon, I was intuitively drawn to this board game. And this game, in it has a deck of cards that are about choices. And so I tuned into the deck of choice cards in a divinatory manner. But I also realized, I'm like, this isn't a tarot deck. So I was kind of like, I was joking with it, but I was also real. And I was playful with it. I wasn't serious, but I was certainly certain and absolutely sincere by picking up this deck in a divinatory way, but still having fun. So I guess my thought is, what sort of message could some silly board game possibly have for us, for the collective under this Gemini New Moon? But I tuned into it anyway to see what would be revealed. And so the choice is yours. I'm going to give you the choices here. So, choice number 1, side number 1, it says black and white. You see only black and white. Lose a sword. If no sword, you lose a turn. Connecting us to the Sword of Truth. It was funny that the card, because there's the different elements in this deck, and I happened to pull a sword, which felt very Gemini. So you see only black and white. You see the duality in the world. You lose a sword or you lose a turn. Or choice number 2, and this seems like the higher road here for us on the Gemini New Moon, and it's called shades of gray. You see the shades of gray between extreme positions. Take a sword or take another turn. Roll the dice again, right? So that is our message here for the Gemini New Moon. And I'm hoping for you that you have this opportunity to carve out for yourself some extra reflection time. And so if you are looking for that, right now, the Gemini Sun and Moon are at the 2nd degree, and they are trine Saturn and Aquarius right now at the 1st degree. Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius. So there's a harmonious energy between what we are learning and communicating and how it relates to our responsibilities, Saturn, for the collective, Aquarius, or humanity. And so one way you can do that and tune into this energy is by Saturn wants us to commit to something, and Aquarius rules over astrology, so you could commit to your astrology practice. And so if you'd like to receive information in that Gemini way to review Saturn retrograde, your commitments and responsibility, and your connection to the planet Saturn, I have a workshop download that was released on May 11th, 11 days ago. But now I have released it. That was for ritual. I released it on May 11th because that was the day that Saturn stationed retrograde and also Mercury entered Gemini. But this information that is provided within the workshop is timeless. So I have now released it today on my website at its final fixed rate of $75. It's a 5-hour workshop download. I'd originally advertised it as 3 hours, but it is 5 hours because I had a lot of information in there, and there's a 95-page PDF that accompanied it, so I'll put the link in the show notes. If you're interested in that, you can go there and check it out. And so I also offer astrology readings. I have been a bit busier than normal, so I'm completely booked up for the month of May and June, but I do have openings in July. So if you'd like to have a reading with me this year, now would be a good time to go ahead and schedule that. So, again, I'll put the links in the show notes to that as well. Thank you so much, as always, Cosmic Cousins, for tuning into the show. It's such an honor for me to be here with you each week, and I'm wishing for you all the blessings and all of the Gemini New Moon opportunities to ponder, to play, to process, and to write. Remember, this is an image we can have for ourselves at this time, is that on this Gemini New Moon, you are an anchor. You're anchoring in your truth, an anchor of certainty. And you can imagine, I like to think of the image of a kite for Gemini, because it's this thing that's up soaring in the sky, and the wind is carrying it, but it also, when you're flying a kite, you know that it kind of is like, sometimes has a mind of its own. So imagine yourself as the anchor holding a soaring kite, and that is the insight. So anchor down in your truth, but allow the thoughts to expand out. And so if you do have new ideas at this time, not necessarily a time to put them in action, but to really sit with them. So reach out and embrace the world from this place of adaptable authenticity. Realign with your own sense of personal truth and open yourself up to being a loving channel for divine communication. Gemini New Moon blessings to you all. Take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.